thank you so much for checking out Macabre Mondays and the first episode of it. This is going to be one of, I think, 4 episodes that's going to be investigating places close to where I grew up of Seattle. This episode, we're going to Port Gamble, Washington, so get excited. I mean, it looks like a really cute, quaint town. I mean, it's basically like you're in Hocus Pocus. Quickly, just like a little brief history of Port Gamble. Like, what is Port Gamble, Washington, and why is it there, and why does it exist? Well, I'll tell you. It was founded in the 1850s because of the Puget Sound Mill Company, Mill Emporium of Awesome, because Washington is full of trees and timber. It is an evergreen city of awesome, guys. So that's why I was there. The people that worked at the mill needed a place to live, hence Port Gamble. So when I was on the ferry, because you need to take a ferry to get over to Port Gamble from Seattle, I started doing some research because I wanted to kind of know what I was getting into. I've been to Port Gamble before, and I really felt there was things that I hadn't seen. I felt like there was homes that had stories that I wasn't aware of, and that it must have had some kind of dark past that I wasn't aware of. And I did research, and I was, on my lucky dandy iPhone trying to research this, and there really wasn't that much. I couldn't really find much dark stuff or creepy things, except there was one name that kept popping up, and that was the Walker-Ames House in Port Gamble. So I decided I needed to go there. So I get to Port Gamble, right? And I find the Walker-Ames House, and I'm like really excited because it's awesome, and it's in this quaint little town of just awesome, and the house is empty. Crap. Really? And there's no one there to ask, and I'm looking around, and it's like, okay, well, great. What do I do now? And then I see a sign for the Port Gamble History Museum, and I'm like, score, because I would have gone there anyway, because I love history, obviously, and I love museums, clearly, because I'm a mystery adventurer of investigations. So I stumbled down the rabbit hole into this little tiny miniature museum, and there was a lady standing there, and I'm like, yo, lady. I mean, I said it a little bit nicer, just slightly, nicer, and I'm like, listen, tell me the dark side to this city that you're not going to find in a brochure. And she's like, okay, well, pretty clean history for being so old. And I'm like, great. But then she's like, but there is one thing. And I'm like, what? She's like, the Walker-Ames house next door? And I'm like, yeah, the Walker-Ames house next door. She's like, things went down at the Walker-Ames house. And I'm like, well, tell me everything. So the nice museum lady decided to give me like a brief history of the Walker-Ames house, just to kind of set it up before she got to the nitty gritty. So this is what she told me. Cyrus Walker was the first superintendent of the mill. I think he ran it from like 1854 to 1888, something like that. And then that's when he built the beautiful Queen Victorian style house that there's today that overlooks the mill and the beauty-miss escape of Washington, Port Gamble, more specifically, and decided, 1888's rolled around, it seems like a good year to retire, so he did, and he passed the job down to his son-in-law, Edwin Ames, hence Walker-Ames House. Makes perfect sense, right? Well, here's the interesting thing about the whole situation is every superintendent of the mill up until 1997 when the mill closed lived in the Walker-Ames house. So it's basically the house of superintendents, pretty much. So where the story gets really good is 1925 when a man by the name Charles R. McCormick takes over the Puget Sound Mill. Okay, Mr. McCormick, what happened behind this door? Because, well, it was in disrepair, it wasn't competing well with the other mills around the country, the equipment was kind of bad, so he came in and basically saved the day, kind of, sort of. It eventually did flop and didn't survive, and the Talbot family bought it and actually owns Port Gamble to this day, so if you're looking to buy property there, you're out of luck, because they all got it all. Anyways, 1925 rolls around, and the museum lady actually, she got kind of chummy at this point, and she was made it sound like McCormick had a lot of parties at the house, which I don't really blame him because it's a pretty awesome house, and I'm pretty sure I'd be partying it up if I lived there as well. Well, apparently he had a guest that wasn't so nice who decided to wander. And the servant staircase apparently is very narrow and steep, and this is important. You should remember that later. He wandered up the staircase, found a young servant girl, raped her, as unfortunately a lot of men did back in the day. She became with child. Had that little boy, actually kept the little boy. Mr. McCormick was nice enough to let her keep it and have it in the house. Mr. McCormick seems like a nice guy. Her son does not. It sounds like maybe he was a bit of a bad seed because he was playing on that staircase and attempted to push a little girl down the staircase. Well, in an act of what I would consider karma, he falls instead, suffers a really bad brain injury. Saved his life, couldn't save his mental health. He had a very bad case of mental illness for the rest of his life. Became very violent, became very aggressive, especially towards women. Was so unmanageable. And consider the fact that it's the 1920s. This was people didn't know how to really handle this kind of thing. So what did they do? They locked him in the basement. And I have to kind of laugh and get kind of excited because I in a million years, I wasn't expecting that's the kind of secret that would have been told to me. I mean, you can't find that written anywhere. It was a gold mine of creepy. I mean, you always hear stories in the horror movies of people getting locked up, like the crazy person in the attic or the basement, but this really happened in this house. I mean, no, I'm sorry, it's tragic this little boy was locked in there, but I mean, come on. And there's no record of him dying in a hospital, which basically means he probably died in the basement, which makes perfect sense when all the reports that I've read, people say they get so creeped out in this basement. There's been reports of people getting handprints or scratches on them from being down there. Women especially feel very uncomfortable going down in the basement. There's been a lot of investigators that have gone down there. Apparently there's a stool that is considered his stool and you don't like mess with it because I don't know. But the librarian, she's not a librarian. Actually, no, she's a museum person. She's not a librarian. I am sorry, museum lady. I meant to call you a museum lady, not a librarian. But anyways, she said that you could basically throw a stone in Port Gamble and find some kind of activity, but the only real kind of malicious energy in Port Gamble is down in that basement. I found other reports too that people said that they just think the entire house is haunted. Sometimes people say they think possibly Cyrus Walker haunts the house. And there's been a couple reports of people seeing 3 young children in the windows of the upstairs. Who's to say? So, I mean, yeah. Go have a go with it. Go try your luck at the Walker-Ames house. Have fun, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the first episode of Macabre Mondays. I hope you really, really liked it. I have some really exciting things to share with you for the next couple weeks. I went to the Manresa Castle in Port Townsend, which is pretty famous, and it's got a really colorful past. So I'll be showing that, a couple old brothels, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. I really, really hope you subscribe, and please share this with whoever has a dark mind like mine, and yeah. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments or requests, put them below. Thanks. Bye.